My name is Justin Patterson. I am an applications engineer for QT Manufacturing. I'm here to make this video for you guys to show you what enhancements have been made in the new release of Mastercam 2020 in regards to chaining. They've made the enhancements to the chaining dialog box for wireframe along with solid chaining and added a couple new features to the chaining dialog box that really I think are going to be make work a lot more efficient. We're also going to look into the changes they made to any of the hole making style toolpaths of one, how we're going to select the tools or select the holes, how we're going to process the toolpath. So uh, we're going to go through that on this part here. I think this is a pretty good part to show you how we should go about this. It looks a lot worse than it actually is. I mean, there's just a lot of pockets. And with this is kind of a good example to show you. This is something you could go do a standard OptiRough on and just do it all in one shot. But a lot of times you want to have a little bit more control over what you're cutting. And before these enhancements, it made a little bit more time consuming going and selecting all this stuff. So I want to show you using just a standard 2D dynamic toolpath to do most all of this, how quick we can actually put toolpaths on this part and get this out to the machine. So we're just going to simply go start with just a standard dynamic 2D. And before we get started, I just want to kind of go through some of the enhancements you see. So let's actually first go to the wireframe. I don't have actually any wireframe on this part, so I'm not going to be using this because I think with the new enhancements especially, you want to stick with using the solids chaining manager. You'll see how good it is. But you can kind of have a notice first in the wireframe how they've cleaned the interface up. You still have all the same selection methods that you had before. They updated all the icons. So just your chain, your loop, your window, your polygon, your area, your point, your single line, and your vector. What they did is break this out now to where you no longer have to hit the blue down arrow to expand the options. They are all here. This is now your dynamic start point. Move your start point, reverse your start, or bring your start point back. This is reverse, and then this is now your end. So you have it all in one nice area. You're going to see this in the solid chaining as well, but they've added an actual back button. This has been pretty beneficial. You still have the settings for all of this is right here. They've moved it up here to the gear and C-plane and 3D just as well. So let's go to our solids chaining manager. One thing you'll notice just by glancing through here, we no longer have the single edge. What Mastercam did is they condensed it down into edges. Let's just start there with edges. I'm just going to randomly pick some edges here. What's nice about this is I can come in here and pick an edge, and I no longer, to start a new chain, I no longer have to hit the blue plus. I simply just go pick a new edge. Go pick a new edge. But the nice thing is if I get to here and I want to work it around, I can still do it just like before. All the buttons are still the same. We can work it around. And here's where the back button comes in. We go one back at a time. So that's a pretty nice feature. Another thing they added is the shift key on your keyboard. When you hit that while picking an edge, it'll find all tangent edges. So if I select here, you'll notice it brings the chain all the way around. So this can be extremely quick picking geometry and something like that. Now the nice thing about this is I only made one click to go all the way around here, but let's say I didn't want to come to here. Well, the back button still looks at it the same. It's not a back removes a click, it literally removes an entity, each entity that has been selected. So I think that really speeds up the process there with this. On this part, I don't really have a good example to show you, but there's going to be times where if the edge it's trying to meet, it's going to look around the edge, and if it falls outside of a tolerance, which I'm going to show you, this tolerance is it right here, this chaining tangency tolerance. So in theory, it's a 5 degree from the edge of that tangency, I guess is a good way we want to really put that. So if I'm coming along here, this is well within your 5 degrees. Is actually 0 because everything's got a radius on this part. So let's say this wasn't, but this was just a surface coming or another line or edge coming here. and I tried to pick that, it wouldn't pick that up because it exceeds the 5 degrees. So by going in there and opening this tolerance up to a 45 or 35 degrees, now you're allowing it to search more of an angle in order to pick up the next tangent edges. But for this, we'll end up using this to do some finishing stuff. But for right now, let's just kind of continue down our road. So we have loop is still the same. We have partial loop and we have face. The 4 things they added was they have one called outer edges now, to where when you pick an actual surface, it only picks the outer edges. Where that's an advantage over your standard face before is face is going to put chains around everything that's on that face, where this now just goes and picks just the outer edges of that face. Okay, then we have open edges, which open edges will go find just the open edges on that face. And we have bosses, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to find just the bosses. And then we have cavities. These are the ones we're going to work with to do this part extremely fast. So the first ones I want to attack are these closed, the ones I'm going to have to use an inside strategy contained to the inside. So think of anything that I need to approach from the inside. So it's going to be an inside containment. So with that, I'm going to do a closed loop or loop using all outer edges. So I can come in and just pick each one of my completely closed loops. See, you gotta watch yourself. I find myself doing that, picking through. So make sure you pick correctly, and we're in that loop. And I think we have this one. I think that's about it. If I miss one, I apologize. I'm kind of looking ahead, but let's go ahead and say that. That's all I really need to pick for my geometry or for my chaining. So I'm gonna go say stay inside. And apparently I did not do something correctly or pick it correctly. So let's repick all those. Okay, here and here, green check. Now we've went through. Now let's preview our chains. That looks a lot better. So once I've done that, I don't need to do any avoidance or anything. I'm just simply going to stay within that. Let's go grab our tool. This is a fairly small part, so I'm just going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. I know I do need to bump. I need to bump the length of cut up. Let's bring it up to like 1 inch just for this demonstration. So from there, I'm going to come in here and do just the standard. And just for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to bring the step over up to about 50. I'm going to do a 15 thousandths to leave on walls. And depth of cuts, I'm going to set to 1 inch. I'm actually might end up going and turning those off, but I do need to bring my helixal radius down. We could go mess with your chip load if you want, but we won't worry about that right now. So this is where I'm going to build this toolpath to kind of be a universal through all these dynamic toolpaths I'm going to do, meaning the settings are going to stay the same. All I need to do is go repick geometry, and it's so by going to incremental 0 means I'm picking the floor on everything I do, so I'll never have to mess with the new depth where I can go pick the top of stock, because that's never going to change. I'm always going to approach from there. You can work with your feed plane, your retract plane. So let's go set that as an absolute, let's say 1/2 inch. Let's just set you to 1 inch. Okay, and you can go ahead and work on your arc filters. Let's do a 45, tab out of there, and we'll green check. So there's your first toolpath, and see it's going to go ahead and do everything within that 1 inch. So we have the first one done. So now what I'm going to do is go pick dynamic again, and we're going to start working from there. So I'm going to go to my machining region, and I'm going to stay outer edges as well. And I'm going to pick this. Now here's the thing. You can pick as many open edges, like pockets that have open edges like what we have here, but you cannot have an air edge interfere with a containment edge. So my example to that would be these pockets here and this pocket and this pocket. I've defined this as a containment, and I'm going to define this edge as an air, but then this would be in containment, and part of my containment here is now set to air. A lot of times that'll give you a lot of issues. And well, let's actually just do it. Let's do a couple of these so we can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So then this is the neat thing here. I guess I'll go back. Is our air regions. Well, now we'll use this open edges. So I can go pick just the surfaces, and you see that? It only picks the open edges, just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go say from the outside, and let's preview our chains. And you'll see what I'm talking about. It gets confused right here because it says, well, you said this is a containment, but yet you're defining it as well as an open air. So I just try to avoid that at all costs. So I'm going to go ahead and delete both of these. Let's just start that whole thing over just so we can keep track of everything. So I'm going to go back and do just these kind of areas right here. Anything that doesn't interfere uh, with something that I have not done yet. So I can't do these yet because I haven't done any machining there. But for the most part, that looks pretty good. I'll have to do that one next. I could maybe come in there and do that one. So let's go ahead and let's green check. And again, let's go set our air chains. That's the other thing I guess I should have explained. They now allow for multiple air chains to be defined. So this is your good example. So we're going to go use our open edges, and I'm going to go pick just these surfaces. That's all I'm doing, and it finds where the open edges are, just like that. I guess I had that one right there. Okay, so we're going to green check, preview chains. That way we can look at it and make sure. That looks good. Now, mind you, this is something I get asked a lot. Like this blue is running into this wall here. Just because it is doesn't mean that it's going to go into that area. It's just saying that it's a possibility. If we need to, we can set that as avoidance. And as you can see, I did just what I got done telling you you can't do, and I set that one as well. So it's just as simple as going in here and let's remove that edge just by deleting that, and we're there. And then I'm going to go back and grab that machining region as well. That one right there. Okay. So now we should be good. We can go in and preview our chain, and that looks a lot better. So cool thing is I can just hit green check and regen. Let's go ahead and display. So there we go. You can see now we're approaching from the outside. See, so that one, let's make sure we're not interfering with that wall, which we're not. But if you get nervous about that, go ahead and set that as an avoidance region. Okay, there you go. So on and so forth. So you just spend the time going through and picking, you know, what you need to do. So here I'm going to go, my machining regions are going to be outer edges, this, 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 this. And mainly what I'm trying to do is I'm not going to do the whole part right now. I mean, you guys can kind of tell what I'm trying to achieve here. Let's do that. Let's see. We haven't done this yet. We could probably do those, but let's just wait. I think that's about all we can do right there, and then we can go set our air chains. We'll say you, 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 and you. See how quick this is. I'm just previewing change. Just make sure you're doing everything correct. Looks good. Green check, green check. We have toolpaths there. So you see how quick and efficient we can start laying these toolpaths on there. And notice everything looks correct because I'm using like a generic 2D high-speed dynamic. So last one I'm going to do is I want to do these two blue surfaces to kind of show you the next step above that. So same thing, machining region, outer edges, hue. So we've contained everything. The air regions is going to be the same thing, all the outer edges, all of you. And my avoidance is now going to be all these bosses. So by selecting the bosses selection mode, we can now go into there. So now we've selected those as avoidance. So let's preview our chains and see what we look like. We look pretty good. And again, like I said, it's more than likely not, but if you want to, you can set that as an avoidance. But let's see what we look like. Go ahead and green check. Oh, there you go. And there we are. So we're starting here. Let's go ahead and get rid of our holder so we can maybe see a little bit better. Okay, we're starting here. Working ourselves around. Since I've already done this, and it knows where the air chains are. And it works real nice around all the pockets. Okay, and we can go ahead and turn your advanced toolpath displays on. That's something that was actually released in 19. I think it's extremely useful. Blue is going to show you your actual cutting feed rate, or your cutting, and then the brown is actually our micro lift, our back feed rate, and then yellow, of course, is a rapid, green is an approach, and then anytime you have a retract, you're going to have a red. So I have a rapid retract out, so that's why you're not seeing a red there. But you can kind of see how quick this is, and I can go ahead and throw one more on here. Let's go say, hey, I'm going to go do this one right here. The hardest part's just remembering what button you have clicked. Let's go do our air regions. This, okay, and this one we do not have any cavities that we got to worry about, or bosses, I'm sorry, that we got to worry about. Let's go ahead and green check and regen. So there you go. You kind of see how quick we can start throwing these toolpaths on there. So right now I'm going to go ahead and get into the drilling side of things. You can kind of see the process that this is taking. But when it comes to drilling now, we have a couple different holes. Well, I'm going to be honest. I don't really feel like going in there and checking all the hole sizes. You know, trying to figure out what holes where. You know, I'd rather get this part done. So uh, good news is they've got a way to do that. But I want to throw in there real quick. Those of you that are used to using multi-axis drill, because I was going to tell you we have holes on multiple edges, and if we were going to treat this like a 5-axis, we'll get into that. But that multi-axis drill along with 5-axis circle mill no longer exist. They've actually condensed those into our standard hole making. So let's start with drill. So I'll get into more of the multi-axis, but let's start with the nice thing about how we're allowed to select now. We come in here, and all I simply have to do is pick a cylinder. When it picks a cylinder, I have an arrow that denotes what in theory is the top. The arrow should be pointing up. So if I'm drilling from this way, the arrow needs to be up. If I was drilling from that way, but of course there's no hole there, it would be down. So make sure your arrow's always up. And the nice thing now is it tells me, it says that we have a solid feature that's a 70 thousandths diameter hole. And it's as simple as just repicking again to unselect. Now you can still pick an arc, and it tells you it's a solid arc. But there's an advantage to using the cylinder. So I accidentally picked the arc. I want to go pick the cylinder. I don't need to go delete this. I don't need to do anything. Just pick the cylinder, and it replaces the arc with the feature cylinder. So now I have all these holes. Well, I don't want to go pick all these holes. Well, that's the nice thing about 2020 with this. If I go in, go to that hole, and hold Control on my keyboard and click that hole, it'll search the whole entire model for all holes that match that diameter, including this wasn't a very good example because there's only on this face. So let's delete this because I know this hole here is on the whole part. So if I hold Control, you'll see it found all holes on the whole entire part by holding Control. So to combat that, I can come in here. If I don't want all those, hold Control again, select it again, and it unselects everything. Well, I was too impatient there, but it'll actually do it. There you go. So it unselects everything. Now, if I'm doing this in 3-axis mode, I want to do it all in one tool plane. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to that hole, and I'm going to hold Control and Shift and pick the hole. And now it finds all the holes that belong in that tool plane. Okay, so again, you can go in there, pick again, and it'll unselect everything. So let's start with these number 70 holes, or 70 thousandths holes, because we'll use these as a multi-axis motion. So I've got all these holes along the top edge here, and it looks like it found one right there. So this model actually has a hole inside of there that I don't necessarily want to do. It looks like all these right there have them, which I would probably drill those first anyways. But if you actually don't like it, you can go in there and unselect it. You don't need to find it from the tree anymore. Just go in there and unselect it. That's the nice thing about this now, is I don't have to go find it in my tree anymore. I could just simply go and say, you know what, I don't want that hole. I only want these holes. Okay, so with that being done, I just go in, green check. Let's go pick our tool. So for this tool, we need a number 70. So I'm going to say a between 0.065 and 0.075. Let's see what drills we have available. It looks like we have a number 50 that is a 70 drill, 70 thousandths. Let's just straight drill this. tool axis control. This is where I'm saying we now can do our multi-axis motion by simply selecting what our output format should be. We'll get into this in the next set of holes, but for here, another advantage we have by picking cylinders is we can now calculate the incremental values from the hole/line. What that means is I picked this cylinder right here. This cylinder has a top and this cylinder has a bottom, and that was denoted by the arrow, which way the arrow was pointed. That said which one was the top and which one was the bottom. So now Mastercam knows where the top of this hole is and where the bottom of this hole is. So by saying this, we're saying I want you to calculate the depths in the top of the stocks from the holes. So where this is an advantage, one, you don't have to worry about picking depths anymore. Plus, all these holes, these not so much, but all these here are at different Z depths to start with. They're deeper holes in certain areas. You can now drill all those holes in one toolpath. So if you set it to incremental 0 on both top of stock and depth, that's the best way to do it. I'm going to leave this at incremental 2250 for my lead, and make sure this is unchecked so we're not creating our can cycle from our actual 1-inch clearance plane. From there, tip comp still works. The advantage in this is that this is going to be pulled from the incremental 0 or the bottom of the cylinder. So let's go ahead and green check that. And you'll see, there we go. It's picked up all of those holes. We drill the whole part right there, all the way around. One thing we could throw in there real quick is another neat thing new with 2020 is they now started showing Peck Drill and backplot. So let's just do 100,000 Peck Drill. Let's regen just so we can see. And you'll see in backplot it actually shows. There you go. So we actually are showing our Peck here. But where that really carries in is, go ahead and say this now before we get a lot of questions on this. People want to know if the time is actually accurate, which it's getting closer. We're not quite there, and mainly because machine acceleration rates, rapid rates, those are all different. Those are things we can't control. So we're definitely getting closer than they were before. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our next hole, and we're going to worry about these bigger holes here. So I'm going to go pick a drill again, and let's do the same thing. But this time I'm going to hold the control key. That way I pick all the parts on this whole model. Because let's say this is on a like a 5-axis or something. We're sitting there, and I'm allowed to kick this side up and drill this holes and these. But the ones I can't get to is on the bottom. Well, honestly, I don't want to go through and pick each individual hole to unselect it. I don't want to do all that. I just simply want to get rid of them. So you have two options. I could have done the control shift and picked this surface here, control shift, pick this surface here, and control shift on that surface there. But remember, once you select it, you can just pick it again to unselect it. So why not just go to one of these holes, hold control and shift, that way it only looks for the holes on this bottom plane, and select. And see what it did? It removed all the bottom holes and left us with everything else. So the sort still works. We can still do the point to point, or you can do whatever you really want. Green check. We're going to go pick our new tool, and this one. And this is a little trick that I found. I've gotten to this point, and I didn't honestly pay attention to what the hole size was. I didn't look. Well, I don't want to exit out, so this is a little trick I like to use. I'll go in here and use my cheat right here. I'll right click and say diameter of an arc, and I'll pull my hole up right here. Go grab this arc, and it tells me, well, that's an 86 thousandths diameter hole. So I can do a little bit of cheating there. So we'll say that 0.092. Let's see what drill options we have. Okay, so we got number 44 drill. Very good. So same thing. I'm just going to do standard drill for this, but now we're going to go and do this as a multi-axis. So you could just say 4-axis, but since it's not going to require a 5th axis on it, I'm going to go ahead and just do 5-axis. We'll say we're good there. I'm going to come in here, and this is all going to stay the same, and I'm going to green check this for now just to show you another feature that you'll see, and that is this move right here is a prime example. The movement from here to here drives straight through the part, and that's a no good thing right there. So what they've added is they've added the safety zone. This has always been in there, but not a lot of people pay attention to this. they had this add the safety zone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I want to put a safety zone for the tool motion. The style of motion's 5-axis. Do I want to? I can use a feed rate instead of rapid. It's your choice. But I go in here and I define my shape. So this you're going to will look just like a bounding box. Exactly like a bounding box. I can set it to a rectangle, to a cylinder, and to a sphere. I'm sorry. For this, I say just use a box or rectangle, and we can just grow this like you can on a bounding box as well, or you can just simply grab the surface and pull that up. So what this does is it forces all of the movements to be outside of that safety zone box. And you'll see here, there it is. There's the movement that now goes from that box. So if we drill, so right there, there's our good example. Now we need to probably clean that up and resort, but you guys kind of get what I'm trying to say with this. Clean all those up, but that's kind of the neat thing about the new chaining enhancements and the drilling enhancements in 2020. So I hope this works out for you guys, and let us know if you have any issues.